So often, the way a person feels about a game is tied to their life the first time they played it. Booting up World of Warcraft reminds me of being 14, sitting with my brother in the dead of night, queuing for duo arenas as a pair of healers and making people rage quit. The good life. Clair Obscur, Expedition 33, by contrast, reminds me of having a fever for a week. It's probably the most interrupted game I've lately played. It took me over a month to get in the 30 hours to clear the main campaign. I had a flu, 2 hunting trips, a trip to New York City, and countless little disasters that broke up the action. And believe me, this is a game that is downright difficult to play if you're taking cough syrup or just regular exhausted. And yet, I came through the other side and can pretty firmly say, this game fucking rips. Launched in April 2025 by Sandfall Interactive, it was an underground darling for a minute there. But it's mainstream, now that it's won a cool 9 categories at the Game Awards. I don't really care about awards, so I won't be commenting on any of that. I picked this game up specifically because an old friend said it was immediately their new favorite JRPG, and that intrigued me. So, what is it? Well, it's got a lot of JRPG trappings, a plucky band ready to fight God, a memorable transport upgrade system, some odd comic relief characters, several interconnecting skill and stat systems, turn-based combat, and my favorite, a certain earnestness and commitment to the melodrama that a lot of more modern RPGs have been falling short on lately. But it's also clearly drawing a ton from Dark Souls, and more specifically Sekiro, with context-specific counters and an emphasis on parry-timing that almost borders on rhythm games. I'm only going to touch on the story briefly, as I don't want to spoil anything beyond the first few hours. But there's a lot going on mechanically that I really liked. So let's dig in. Lumiere is a little chunk of fantasy France, a city with ringside seats to the Paintress, a goddess that wakes up once per year for an event called the Gamage. She counts down a number on her monolith, and every person above that age explodes. We enter this world as Gustave, a man about to head out on an expedition, an annual tradition where those who are condemned to die the next year make a last, desperate attempt to confront the Paintress and stop her, with a heavy emphasis on laying trails for the next year's expedition. The prologue has us meet and greet, make some friends, get to know our crew, and then the game pulls its first great trick by turning the start of this plucky adventure into D-Day, basically.
Fall back!
Alone and cut off, Gustave starts rallying survivors, and away we go. That's as specific as I want to be with this. Needless to say, the plot develops a lot. The world is recontextualized several times. There's a great suspense to the majority of the characters, and most importantly, the dramatic characters have great dramatic moments and monologues. And the comedic characters just continually knock it out of the park.
No distractions, son. I'm really busy beating up strangers.
Oh, too much effort.
It's a story about grief, persistence, flawed gods, and of course, the power of friendship. The voice work is pretty phenomenal and the graphics are... Well, this isn't the first time I've pointed this out, but high-quality Unreal Engine 5 textures have a way of making animations look really jarring if they aren't up to snuff. The gulf between animation quality and texture quality seems like it's going to be one of the clear stylistic trademarks of this generation of gaming. Oh, and I can't forget about the music.
Cover!
Useful.
It goes from those sweeping orchestral final Frenchisy numbers to some absolutely nasty saxophone and guitar parts. It carries a very distinct style throughout the whole game, always noticeable, suitably grand. And when the soundtrack wakes up for certain boss fights, it really slaps you in the face and makes you pay attention. Mechanically, well, almost every individual part of this game can be traced to another game, but not quite in this exact configuration with this exact focus. Combat is basically an evolution of the QTE attack settings that we've been seeing in RPGs for 30 years or so. But the parrying is really the innovation, drawing more from the Souls series than typical, with a neat twist in the form of multiple types of parries. We can do a basic dodge, which avoids damage, but that's about it. Or try our luck with the much tighter parry-timing. Successful parries restore our action points, and a clean sweep of parries triggers a counterattack. So parries are heavily encouraged by the gameplay. But there's also special heavy-duty attacks that require a different press to counter. And there's a jumping dodge that's required for certain ground effects. Sometimes an attack pattern will require a combination of parries and jumps, culminating into a heavy parry. Having these multiple potential options seems to morph these battles into something closer to a rhythm game than a Souls-like. The trick is not just anticipating the attack patterns, but the specific cues. And with the turn-based nature, you can't just adjust positioning to avoid that damage. The other thing, not really an issue, but a personal preference, and I think this is also something evolving into a weird hallmark of the era as a whole, something that'll date games as easily as Assassin's Creed survey towers or turret sections. And that's the focus on Elden Ring timing. See, in the original Dark Souls, enemies didn't really feint nearly as much. As FromSoft developed the sequels, they added in more and more hesitations and bizarre, slow-moving strikes and speed-ups to throw off that timing and make it more interesting for returning players. And as this type of Souls-like ethos has gradually spread beyond their hands, well, I see more and more games focusing on the frequent fake-outs, the stupid long wind-ups, the erratic flurries, and basically everything but consistent attacks. There's a lot of this in Expedition. At times, I wonder how anyone new gets into these kind of games at this point. After I finished the story and started going through the frankly surprising amount of optional content, I started running into enemies that were stringing more than 6 attacks together at a time. And I kind of fell out of it. Admittedly, I'd been chipping away at this game for over a month by this point, and I had a really good time with the main campaign, but I didn't feel very driven to start over-collecting and really breaking the game. But I can tell this game is begging for the player to come up with strategies that completely break the combat. I found a few within the main campaign, but from what I've seen, the post-story content really takes it to another level. The other thing that Expedition does really well is reward exploration. There's a few main tracks for this. Sometimes we unlock silly little costumes so we can make our characters even more French, sure, but there's also refresh on rest consumables that we upgrade by finding components across the world, either allowing for extra charges or efficacy. And most importantly, the Lumina system. As we defeat enemies and explore the world, we collect these Lumina relics. We can equip 3 at a time to a character. Each one provides a distinct modifier to that character. Once you've won 4 combats with one relic, you permanently unlock that modifier. Characters gain Lumina points as they level that can be freely assigned to gain those specific modifiers without the item equipped. But as we explore, we constantly find items we can burn to give our characters more Lumina points. So there's several consecutive systems here that encourage the player to stop, look around, and engage with all of the weird sub-bosses and challenge fights. Oh, and the other way this game encourages exploration is by constantly shoving really cool visuals in your face. Just jaw-dropping vistas, bizarre creatures, all sorts of stuff. It really comes together so nicely. If you clicked into this video hoping I'd have some contrarian take, sorry. I really like this game. I'm not going to say it's an immediate, permanent favorite. All of my favorite games never left beta or are at least 5 years old. So ask me again in 5 years and I'll have a solid answer for my ranking on this. But for what it's worth, Clair Obscur Expedition 33 is a really stellar time, and is one of those rare JRPG style games that breaks through into the wider market for all the right reasons. It's got a great story, appealing graphics, incredible sound design, fairly tight gameplay, and as far as I can tell, sure, it deserved to win some awards. On the trusty pain scale, I'd give this one a painless. I fully expect to play this game a few more times in my life, and I think I'll enjoy it just as much when I do. I had a weird epiphany while playing this. When I was a kid, what I liked about JRPGs was that I could usually brute force or break them even when I didn't really know what was going on with the systems, and that they were relatively low interactivity, letting me take breaks for whatever reason or play slowly while doing something else. As an adult, I like them because I can drink a Coors Banquet and veg out without completely ruining a run. Expedition is actually a bit too involved for either of those things to be true. But I still liked it. Well, that's all for my 48th review. I'm Ed Moyer. Thanks again for tuning in, and as always, see ya!